The Reliability and Validity of the Avatar Embodiment Questionnaire by Tabitha Peck and Pauline Cha. Self-avatars have been shown to produce numerous benefits, including reducing implicit racial bias, increasing environmental awareness, and improving cognitive performance, as well as many other things. This is partly due to what's known as the sense of embodiment, where people are self-located in their avatar, have a sense of agency over their self-avatar, and feel a sense of ownership over their avatar. And when you include all of the three things, users take on a physical and stereotypical characteristics of their self-avatar. So because of the sense of embodiment, researchers have been genuinely interested in understanding why this is working. And to do so, numerous assessment tools have been developed, including the SPQ, AEQ, VEQ, and PESQ. When developing assessment tools, we often have to consider questionnaire validation. So validation is broken into two parts: validity, where we are looking at measuring what is supposed to be measured. So is the tool actually measuring what we want? As well as reliability, the agreement between repeated uses. So in this case, we're looking at a questionnaire that would be considered not valid because it's not on target. We can have a situation where a questionnaire is not valid because it's not on target, but it is reliable in that over repeated uses, they're all measuring the same general thing. A questionnaire could be valid in that all of the measurements are around the target, but not reliable because over each use, there's a lot of noise. We have the worst case situation where it's neither valid nor reliable. And finally, our goal of having our assessment tool be both valid and reliable. There are numerous methods to demonstrate validity of a questionnaire. One really common one is known as face validity, where the questions for that measurement tool are derived from experts in the field. When looking at the questionnaires that we presented before, every single one of them reaches face validity. However, face validity, though important, is not considered enough to demonstrate validity of a questionnaire. So you often consider another type of validity. A common one is factorial validity, where a factorial analysis is performed on a collection of questions, and the questions are grouped into categories. Factorial analysis requires large sample sizes of at least 100. And so when looking at the questionnaires that we mentioned before, two of them reach the factorial validity of having sample sizes that are large enough. However, when looking at all of the questionnaires, none of the questionnaires have demonstrated reliability. And so, our question is, these questionnaires, we have some that we know have been demonstrated to be valid. Others are potentially valid, but we don't know yet. But we do not yet know if any of the questionnaires are reliable. So why do we care about reliability? Well, reliability is really important if you want to have people take the same questionnaire over time. And so if you ever want to run a within participant experiment, you have to have a reliable assessment tool because you need to know that there's no noise being added in. Additionally, if you have participants that participate in multiple different experiments on different days or at different times, you also want to know that your measurement tool is reliable. So questionnaire reliability, the way you demonstrate this is by getting a group of participants, having them complete an experiment, and having them complete a questionnaire. And then you do this exact same thing with the same group of participants, experiment, and questionnaire again and again. And so in this work, we collected participants. We had them complete a short experiment as well, and then followed by the AEQ. Each participant completed between 2 and 5 trials, and the trials were approximately 2 weeks apart. The experiment was used cell phone-based head-mounted displays to support accessibility. They selected one of 4 different avatars of their choice, and then were placed into a virtual office space where they were guided to look around the room for specific objects for 2 minutes at a time. Participants then completed the AEQ on their own computer. We considered two different conditions to demonstrate reliability, specifically looking at avatars that are similar to the participant. In this case, our female identifying participants were given same-gendered avatars. We also were interested in knowing if this worked for people who were in avatars that were dissimilar along some diversity dimension. And in this case, we looked at participants who did not identify as female, and they were in a cross-gendered avatar. So when considering our results over our 5 different trials, we analyzed our results using 3 different standard analyses for reliability testing. We looked at our results for all participants and then within same-gendered avatars and cross-gendered avatars. Our first assessment was test-retest reliability. This is looking at the correlation between different trials. And the scale for this goes from 0 to 1, where 1 is perfect and around 50% is poor. Our goal was to reach an acceptable range for all of our metrics. So when considering our participants' measurements between weeks 0 through week 8, all of our participants reached acceptable levels. When considering participants in same-gendered avatars, the correlations were higher and reached the good level. However, when considering our cross-gendered avatars, we can see that in week 1, there are a couple of measures that are in the questionable range. However, after that first measure, from weeks 2 through 8, all of our measurements were in the good range or higher. So when considering our test-retest reliability, it supports that all participants did receive, across all participants, we reached an acceptable level, as well as for our same-gendered avatars. However, in our cross-gendered avatars, during that first trial, there were a couple of questionable measures. Now, test-retest reliability is often not considered one of the strongest measurements when looking at reliability analysis, so we also considered interclass correlation. So interclass correlation is a performance consistency within that participant. So looking at each participant's trials compared to each other, to themselves, as well as the entire group's performance over time. The measurement uses something called the ICC index. Again, it's on a scale from 0 to 1, ranging from poor to excellent. In this case, when considering all of our participants, where each line here is a participant's measurements and the dots on the line are their individual trials. Across all of our participants, the ICC index was above the good range. The same was true for our same-gendered avatars, which can be seen with the purple lines and the circles, as well as for our cross-gendered avatars, who are in the green lines with the arrows. So with interclass correlation, all of the measures reached above the acceptable range, and they were in the good range. Finally, we considered blind Altman analysis, which is another common analysis when considering reliability analysis. Blind Altman analysis involves making blind Altman plots, as shown here, and the details of these plots and the analysis are in the paper. And the results demonstrate that overall we were underpowered to really support our results using blind Altman analysis. So in conclusion, what we did find was that the Avatar Embodiment Questionnaire, we can consider it to be reliable. This was demonstrated through 2 different measurements using both test-retest reliability and interclass correlation. This suggests that the AEQ is an acceptable measurement tool for within participant experiments, as well as for participants who want to participate in multiple different experiments over time. However, we will say that there is potential for caution when participants are wearing avatars that are unique across a diversity dimension from the participant, in that first trial may be questionable. In this case, we provide the following recommendations when using the AEQ in these types of experiments. So when the participant is of a similar identity to the avatar, we recommend running your experiment just how you normally do and measuring with your AEQ afterwards. However, if you are in a situation where the avatar is of a different identity to the person, where you've changed the visual appearance in some way, we highly recommend that you use an acclimation phase. So a short phase where participants are in the avatar, then have them take the AQ, then go ahead and run the experiment just like you normally would. In this case, that first measured AQ should be considered with question. However, any of the follow-on AQs would be considered reliable. Thank you for your time.